Hello, I hope you all are doing so well. Just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about what's been going on the last few weeks, last few months. These are certainly some of the most challenging energies I have ever felt. And yet, to say I don't think they're the most challenging energies. I think in the way that I'm experiencing it, right, as it's the stuff that has collected in the human body that is really having a hard time moving out, and we're experiencing our own selves and everything that we have become um, in the face of our consciousness, right? So we've been mm, plugged in. There's definitely a different feeling. We're a completely different system now, right? We're running on a very different system than we did. Um, I would say 2 to 3 months ago is when this change really started to occur. It was gradually coming into being, but it was like once it happened, there was almost like no awareness that it had happened, and we suddenly found ourselves starting to kind of scramble to adjust, to figure out how to adjust to this. Um, and the best way I could describe it is that it's as if you have a new awareness, or your conscious awareness is finally able to be present all of the time, but it's present in a body which has been deeply conditioned, right? So there's a deep sense that there is space and clarity here, and yet it's very much surrounded. And I would say the last 2 months, for sure, it's been a very dense, a very heavy experience. Now, again, like I wanted to say energies, but it's not the energies. It's what's already in the body, what is really getting dissolved in the body, the buildup and the density of the toxicity of the conditioning, or the toxicity that the conditioning has created, right? So there's this weird juxtaposition of being present and being aware, and then also being simultaneously aware of the toxicity and the beliefs and the programmings that you've held all of this time, and how that has led to what your current reality is. So it's very unsettling, because you're both at the same time, and maybe not simultaneously feeling both, right? But there's a lot of flip-flopping that's going on, where okay, I feel secure. Okay, when I'm present, when I'm doing my practice, whatever it is, right, to keep me grounded and meditating, and whatever it might be for you, there's a deep sense that things are exactly where they need to be, right? When we're not there, and when we're in kind of the daily grind of living, right, we can suddenly find ourselves almost as if the switch flips, right? And all of a sudden, we'll find ourselves in a pit of despair. But it's not like it's just when I'm doing my mundane physical life stuff, right? It's you go along, you feel okay, and then all of a sudden it's like you trip, and you found yourself in a space of darkness. So it's and then what happens, right, is you're able to observe. It's like the consciousness is breaking up that density, right? Because as you, let's say, fall into that space of density within your cells, right, within your, I hesitate to say consciousness, because when I say consciousness, I mean the awareness as light, as source, as this divinity that has this capacity to shift all things, right? So when you find yourself in a place where your consciousness suddenly feels very much confined, right, where you're not able to find that light, or you're not able to find that hope, or not able to find that space where you feel like you can breathe, right? Suddenly you might find yourself consumed with fear, or consumed with despair, or having panic attacks, right? Anxiety. These things just seem to flare up out of nowhere. What's happening is your consciousness is being, well, I shouldn't say it's being called in there, right? You suddenly find yourself, it's this switch that happens, and there's a good reason for it, to fall into this place, because no one would willingly go there, right? To bring the light here into these, they're pockets, right, where the trauma has previously kind of created this membrane, right, where we wouldn't enter into. We couldn't because the pain was so great, right? So now it's happening as if we're walking along and we just keep tripping into these potholes. And now that we're there, we have to figure out how to get ourselves out, right? But this is a great cleaning, a great dissolving of those. Really, there's spaces of like dead consciousness, right? It's where the consciousness has not been present or not been able to be present within the body. So it's a harrowing experience at times, and really, I would imagine for most of you having to kind of muster everything that you have, get all of the tools, bring all of that to the table at these times. Can be very, very scary. Some of the experiences, like I went to a breathwork workshop the other day, and I could not believe the amount of fear that I was feeling. Now, I've done these things before, no big deal. I was actually excited to go, right? But as he's talking about what to expect, I just felt this panic rising inside of me. And even as the session started, I felt like I just wanted to run out of there. And the first kind of round, that building up to that first kind of intense physical breathing, it was awful. Like I could feel the dead consciousness inside of me rising to the surface, right? And it literally felt like I was not going to survive. My breath felt so shallow, and I kept thinking like, oh my God, what has happened to my body? I can't even live inside of my body anymore. It's barely expanding. It felt so constricted with my breath, right? Like I was barely able to hold my breath for more than like 20 seconds. And I started to panic because I thought, oh my God, my body has deteriorated so badly over these years. What in the world is going on? And I really thought I was going to die. And it had that feeling of like, something has happened to me. I have no idea what. And now that I'm in this space and I can feel the energy trying to get into my body through the breath, right? It was like there's nowhere for it to go. And I was absolutely convinced that I was not going to survive, which is just completely, saying this back now, it sounds totally insane, right? But these are the kinds of things that are happening. And again, I would say it is by far the most intense experience that I have ever had, in terms of what's going on in the energies, right? So, we've had some really dark, negative experiences when you have had to deal with entities or these demonic or satanic or even AI energies, right? Like they all have a different kind of flavor to them, different experiences that come along with them. But this is so personal because it's so about our cellular complex, right? It is everything that we have experienced in this lifetime. And of course, other experiences, other lifetimes, whatever it might be, right? They're all related, but we're having to face this now in this lifetime, in this human body, right? So it's pulling up a lot of memories that have been buried for a very long time, and then probably memories we never maybe even experienced yet or had recall of, so it can be deeply horrifying, in the consciousness, in the mind right now. You can be walking along. I'm sure you're having this experience. Right? You're thinking, I'm just a human and I'm going to the grocery store, but at the same time, my mind is kind of blown right now about the things that I'm feeling or experiencing or remembering or kind of working on dissolving, right, within me. And I don't totally know what to call this. Except that what I've seen, and in fact, I had even seen at one point during this session yesterday, I actually fell asleep and I just felt so peaceful, kind of in this meditative state for a while. And what I actually saw was, it's like within the DNA, it's like the DNA has gotten fully plugged in, but there are still like memories within almost the nervous system, right? Like the stranding or something in the nerves and the nerve walls, in the way that the information gets, let's say, electrically communicated through the body. So these neural pathways too. And the cells have their own process going on too, where they're still sort of purging the memory of the old way of processing consciousness. Because remember, the consciousness that has been present within us, yes, we may bring in consciousness in, but it quickly becomes tainted, right, or toxic because of the conditioning that is within us. So the cells are going through their own purging process, but the rest of the body still has some sort of I don't know if it is the cellular memory, right? But it's like they're in every organ and every part of the biology, there's some sort of memory of running um, the old system or the old way, right? Where it's not I am choosing and then we take this choice and we go with it, right? It's more there is there's a trigger or there's an event or there's something, right? Some sort of input, there's an external input, and then the body says, oh, I know this, and it responds in that patterned way, right? um, so we're learning how to switch out of that, right? And so where it has been incredibly frightening to be in a space of pure consciousness, to have a conscious awareness and then to move with it, right? That has ultimately in the past meant certain death, right? So as we are taking steps through the human realm, through the physical body now to do different things, it's still triggering that sensation of death, of being completely annihilated, right? And this is exactly what I experienced yesterday in this session. Was just I was certain I was never going to make it home, and if I made it home, I kept thinking I have no idea how I'm going to finish out this life. I have no idea, because I've exhausted every physical step, every different kind of choice I could possibly make to get myself out of this feeling of entrapment and imprisonment, right, in my life. It was so strong. But that's essentially what we're dealing with, is the body learning that it's safe, right? The consciousness is going to come in no matter what. The pure consciousness is coming in. It is here. It's only going to continue to build, right? So we have to learn how to help the body know that it's safe, right? That because this is going to happen no matter what. And so we're either going to panic and freak out and make it worse for ourselves, or we're going to figure out ways to convince the body that it's okay to come along on this journey, right? So it's kind of being our own parent again, where we didn't get that safe, comforting experience, right? Which it's actually a perfect time then to learn how to nurture ourselves, right? And learn how to nurture that inner child if you didn't receive that. It's a very wonderful time to really practice being present with things that fill you up. And this is what I'm finding too. It's the simple things. Just when I'm in my home, right? It's just cooking something that smells good. Really taking in kind of that aromatic experience, right? Even if I'm cleaning, it's just really enjoying like the process of going from chaos to order, right? And just soaking it in through my cells and acknowledging that this feels really good. This is a really good thing. This is a really wonderful experience, and that I'm choosing to do this, right? And this is my choice and my consciousness saying, I get to spend the time to do these things that feel good, that fill me up. And even if they're not things I would technically say fill me up, right? That there's still divinity in every physical action that we take when it is done through consciousness, when it is done through ourselves, when it is done through and as our own choice, right? Not because someone says you have to do this or else. Right? That or else piece, that's control, right? Like, who is to say that this behavior, this step, or this action is going to lead to this particular outcome? And I'm sure there's many situations where we can say, well, yeah, but if you do this, you're going to end up with that. I mean, I'm talking about, breaking the law or things like this, right? Or things that, there are like consequences for certain actions. I'm saying that, if you were to take 5 extra minutes or take a day off and do something, right? Like you really want to get to this project, or really want to read this book, or you really want to do whatever it is, right? Or I don't have time to make myself breakfast. Well, actually, you will find that you do. And this is one of the things that I have been forced to work with now, is this concept of time, and I don't have time to take care of myself, right? Because I've been experiencing this massive level of exhaustion. And knowing that, okay, it's probably stress and I need to take care of myself and self-care, et cetera, et cetera. Except again, like that's one of those weird things where you can be doing it because you think this is something you have to do. But if you're not doing it as a conscious choice because it's the best thing for you, and because you know it's going to fill you up and allow you to continue on with the rest of the things that you need to do, right? There's a difference there. And I'm finding that, if I'm like, I just need to get up and work out before I go to work, it's like, then it's a nightmare. If I get up and work out because I'm focusing on the benefits, what that brings me, the need that it fills within me, right? Then somehow there's plenty of time. It's a beautiful workout. It's a beautiful experience, right? Even if it's painful, it feels good. But when I'm doing it because it's a chore or a task or something I think I have to do because X, Y, and Z, it's an awful experience. And so every day is this negotiation and learning how to navigate these little minefields, right? So it feels like pure, utter chaos right now sometimes because every day there's so many different things that you can engage in, right? So there's a purification of the toxicity that has been existing within us as a result of the conditioning. So the interesting thing is, I've had a couple of times now where I've so completely low. I would never, I've been depressed in the past, I think, right? With all of the life things that I have gone through, never have I felt as awful as I have felt in these last few months, where it just feels like I don't know what to do. I have exhausted everything that, or made every choice that I feel like I could make, right, to change my situation. And then I'm still feeling this weight and this sense of burden and overwhelm and exhaustion. And it has just pushed me and pushed me to find the answer to this, right? Which ultimately at this point it's so much about honoring this body. I think in the past we used to have this thing as the energy or the soul of like, the stupid human just won't get their act together, right? And yet it's like, well, the human actually couldn't, because there was so much blockage going on here, especially with the cells and the DNA. And now things have completely opened up. And thank goodness there is a bit of this grace period here, right, to sort this out and to figure this out. But it can be completely maddening because if we thought we had our shit together before, we kind of find out, we have our shit together in certain circumstances or around certain people or in certain situations where we have control to some degree, right? But what happens when you're in someone else's environment and you're not the one in control and you're not the one calling the shots, right? And yet you have to be there. We still have to figure out how to be who we are, right? This divine nature that we are. We're still having to figure out how to be that in this cellular body in those situations where we may ultimately not have a choice or a say about being there, right? So it's a completely different level of light work. And I think in some ways, it's finding another layer of this kind of empath / light worker ego, right? Of, I'm here to save the planet. It's like, actually, no, you're here to save yourself, right? Like, people, like, there's so many just toxic sayings in the spiritual and new age community, and the coaching community. And one of them is, no one's coming to save you, right? It's like, actually, you don't need anyone to save you because you can save yourself. And that's what we're really focusing on right now. So even if we feel we have all these responsibilities or all these things to tend to, or my job and my finances and my my kids or my career or my parents or my car or my home, none of that gets done if you're not going through yourself to do it, right? In fact, what most likely happens is that those situations become even worse. So we're being called back to ourselves now, where we have previously felt unable to be present as ourselves within ourselves, right? And this is the crazy thing. So why would we not have felt comfortable being present in our own body, right? It's trauma. So we're having to navigate and renegotiate those traumatic experiences, right? Or at least the memories. And I don't mean the memory of like the actual traumatic experience. I mean the cellular, the chemical memory, right? The chemical wash that happens in your body when something similar, or when we get triggered in a similar way as that, right? Where it signals that to be released in the body. So those places where we have been locked out of our own kind of presence are coming up. They're rising to the surface, right? And we have to learn how to be present with it. We have to learn how to breathe through it. It's like all of the modalities that you have learned, all of the experiences that you have had in terms of healing and self-care and all these, it's like you really having to bring it to the table right now to be able to walk through what's here. And in some ways, again, like I said, it is this grace period, right? Because it's not about going out and saving the world. It is about saving ourselves now. It's about focusing so deeply on ourselves. And as we do, we're learning, it's not about learning to love yourself. It's not about like, let me love myself better, love myself harder. It's that we were never really able to love ourselves to begin with because of all this garbage that was here, right? So these things become easier. It becomes easier to be in that space of love. It becomes easier to be joyful. It becomes easier to be present. In all these places where you have been shamed in the past or shamed yourself in the past for not doing it right, you start to realize why. Because there was stuff there. Right? There was a lot of garbage that was still active and alive, that was running the show. And it's less about investigating that anymore, because you've probably, hopefully, already done that work, right? Looking at the stories. What were the stories when I was younger, right? That created these situations, that created these feelings, that caused this trauma, as best as you knew. And now you're able to apply that, right? So when the sensations and the feelings are coming up, you can say, oh yeah, that was this. I feel this. And you're giving light to it. You're shining the consciousness of your mind, being present with your body now, right? You're observing this within yourself. You're witnessing it within yourself. That's that quantum experience, right, of the energy field. Being able to be in two different perspectives simultaneously, aware that you're actually having emotional flashbacks now, right? Why am I suddenly feeling agitated and panicked? Okay, something is resurging within me. And now I get to look at it, and now I get to be present with it, and now I know how to soothe myself through this. And the more that you do, you find the less that you die. In fact, the more you give life to, the more you are rebirthing yourself in every moment. Instead of burying those things back down again, you're no longer afraid of it, right? In fact, it's like, okay, bring it on. I know my deepest, darkest places now, and I know I can survive it, and I know I can walk through it. And there's nothing in this world anymore that is going to allow me to say no to myself, right? So if you're going through it, it's been a bit of a hellish walk lately. So my heart goes out to anyone who knows what I'm talking about. Please know that you're not losing your mind. In fact, that's probably the irony of it, right? You're just finding more of your mind. And learning to hold the vastness of who you are as not only this energy being, right, but this human. And all of the places where you're human has been so compressed, so suppressed, so oppressed, so squeezed. And letting her live out loud, letting him exist in his full expression. It's so contrary to what we're seeing in the world right now, right? There's so much fear, so much unknown, so much restriction, and yet the total opposite is actually happening right in front of us, right within us. That's the thing. It's like that is all such a distraction from what is actually happening within you. It's very, very real. I get it. I know. There's a couple times this last week that I felt like, man, I don't know anymore. I'm out of here. Like, I just can't anymore. I've done everything, right? And then it's like, that's because I'm responding to the external. Like, there is nowhere else to go in the external anymore, right? That's the whole point. And I've said this, like, it's reached the end of its useful life. There's nothing else there. And it's not unless you come inside that you find this life worth living. But yet we're still out, right? We're pulling parts of ourselves out of that still. Negotiating this with ourselves. It's safe to come in and live from in here. And in fact, most of us are learning this is the only way we're going to be able to live. So, all right. I hope this video finds you well. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take good care.